Good afternoon, Razorback Nation. We are back for your Sunday afternoon Razor Recap brought to you by Hawgs on the Hill, your go-to podcast for an in-depth dive into all things Arkansas sports. We're brought to you by our good friends over at Razor Pigs. Looking good, never felt so fun. Razor Pigs is the Arkansas-born brand, bringing some serious style golf course tailgate and everywhere in between. From high-quality polos to head-turning hats, they've got what you need to rep the natural state with pride. Founded right here at home and now run by Razorback loving family, Razor Pigs is where comfort meets cool. So go hog wild and shop Razor Pigs today at razorpigs.us. And our friends over at Scarlet Letter, Arkansas's very own handcrafted spiked seltzer. Check them out today. And if you are Northwest Arkansas, check out the Core Brewery Tap Room where you can get Scarlet Letter in all of its various flavors. Sunday afternoon, off-season times here. How you guys doing?
Doing good. How about you?
Oh, busy Sunday afternoon. It's summertime. Things are starting to get busy, but we're trucking along and making it. What about you, Trey?
Just another great Sunday full of church, family, and food. Can't beat that much.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So, kind of as I alluded to, and I mentioned in on X, however you want to refer to it, as the off season's officially here. Kind of the same thing as the title of the show. Season is over, but the work isn't. Transfer portal for baseball is here. Football recruiting is hot and going on right now, with recruits coming in and visiting weekend after weekend. And then a lot of things going on. We got some coaching changes we'll talk about here in a little bit. But we'll dive into Arkansas baseball first, as that's the most relevant thing going on with obviously season being over. Not going to dwell on that too much, but transfer portal time's here. As Trey likes to say, it's his favorite time of the season. And there's a lot going on. Arkansas, since we last met on Wednesday, we've got a few commits to talk about that have committed, and they're all on the pitching staff in terms of, that was the struggle, the weakness that we've had this year. And so I think Dave is easily going out and addressing that. Got a handful of JUCO guys coming in, as well as a guy coming in from Belmont that we'll talk about. So you look at it, that was the big thing. Obviously this year, you lacked pitching depth. And so I think we see Dave addressing that, in these first few commits that he's got out of the transfer portal. And you start looking at these guys, you've got some guys visiting, but, guys that are, officially committed, they're attacking that need. So, out of the commits, you've got one right-handed pitcher coming in so far with two lefties. That right-handed pitcher, Lance Alexander, he is coming in from Johnson County Community College. He is 6'1", 185. He appeared in 19 games, started 7, had a 4.47 ERA, 67 strikeouts, 19 walks, and 15 1/3 innings for Johnson County. The Cavaliers did win the National Junior College National Championship with a 67-3 record, with multiple players who have committed to D1 programs. Alexander did start the JUCO World Series Championship game against Blaine College, allowed 4 runs, 8 strikeouts, and 6 2/3. He also pitched 4 innings with 1 run and 7 strikeouts during a JUCO World Series game against Walter State Community College. So, he's a guy that he has a 91 to 94 mile an hour fastball, 80 to 84 changeup with an 80 to 84 slider. His fastball has touched anywhere around 95. And that's before Matt Hobbs gets his hands on him and works with him on, some of those pitches. Probably going to see hopefully some increase in velo by the time we see him on the mound next season.
Yeah, definitely good to at least address the pitching. Definitely good to, get a few of these guys now. As I think that casual fans may go, hey, why are we getting JUCO guys when you have LSU, Miami getting these, top tier pitchers in the portal? I think it's not bad, but I think that it's very kind of undervalued what Matt Hobbs brings because we've seen multiple pitchers come from the JUCO ranks that he's turned into viable SEC caliber pitchers. So, I know I've seen a few things online where it's just like, wow, LSU's going to get like the number 4 pitcher in the portal, and we're sitting here getting JUCO guys. Don't freak out. We've been doing this for a while, and I think it's totally fine. I trust Hobbs to develop these guys. And, the way our pitching is, I think that they definitely see something in him to go get him. So it's one of those, don't pump the brakes quite yet. Don't overreact just because of where the guy came from. So definitely, I think we could see him next season, and, excited to see what happens and what they develop him into.
Yeah, and kind of like what you're saying, Zane, is Matt Hobbs has the reputation of building pitchers up. But there's also a side of things that maybe we're not talking about enough, and maybe the baseball gods are on the Razorback side, and Wiggins will be back next year.
Yeah.
And Dave Van Horn's not necessarily going out for that Friday night starter. He's going out for guys who could be serviceable.
Right.
Where if we do need
bullpen type of guys.
Yeah. So if we do need pitching, it could be a community of pitchers.
I mean, that's the thing. When it comes down to you're obviously you need an ace, but your starters are going to pitch one game a weekend. You need those guys out of the bullpen that can pitch twice a weekend and give you a consistent, solid outing. And so, do I think that we're going to go get our ace from a JUCO? Maybe not. But I think you're going to go get some very quality bullpen pieces from the JUCO ranks and be able to develop them based on what you see.
Exactly. And I mean, that was the thing this past year. We had guys that could start and give you some decent outings, but the minute you kind of got into your bullpen, once you got past kind of your key guy or two, that's really where it fell off. And I mean, the regional was a great example of that. We got to that point where, we were in the next game or game 6 and, had to win 2. And, you got hit with the depth where you didn't have the depth in terms of your bullpen to, get through all these games without exhausting your guys. And so I think you see Dave going out addressing that. And then it's like Trae said, we still don't know 100% what's going to happen with Carson Wiggins. I would lean towards more than likely he's maybe gone, but who knows with what Dave has up his sleeve. He may be, bring him back as your Friday guy. And there's some deal in the works that, we don't know about yet, but
I just have a hard time seeing him coming back.
I do too.
Because he was not playing this supposed half month, he was good to pitch.
Right.
So, and I mean, DVH even addressed it about, people aren't wanting him to throw. Definitely makes the thing, hey, it's protecting your draft stock. I just have a hard time seeing him come back.
Well, it could also be that Razorback fans and the Razorback staff are wanting him to throw, but it could also be that the scouts are wanting him to throw too, to see that he can still throw the ball. So, I mean, and we can't just be blind to the fact that DVH doesn't talk to these scouts almost on a daily basis either.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, I did see, we saw multiple things about where, hey, he's recovering well. He's doing good in practice. He's still got some good velocity and all this. And then it was like that last month, it's like, okay, we're kind of expecting to see him and we never did. And then there was, I forgot what game it was on that post game where it's like, yeah, people aren't wanting him to pitch or something along those lines. So it's like, okay, that's tough now because it's like that automatically just signals to me protecting your stock. So that's kind of what I inferred from that.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things where if it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, probably is a duck, but it's wishful thinking more on my end.
I get that.
Yeah, agreed. So as we continue on, Arkansas also added a couple of lefties as well, with one of those being Ridge Harvey coming in from Belmont. He is a lefty out of Belmont, 6'1", 185. He had a 4.24 ERA with 50 strikeouts, 15 walks, and 46 2/3 innings this past season for Belmont. He was named honorable mention All Missouri Valley Conference, finished 5th in the league's Freshman of the Year voting. So he's a young guy that can come in and develop. He started 8 of his 14 appearances, recorded 3 saves. He was a guy that, he was quoted with saying he really loved the coaches, thinks they're a perfect fit for him. He also mentioned Arkansas's baseball culture is like no other. I mean, obviously we know that, and the machine that Dave's built here. He said he can't wait to meet all the guys. Fan base speaks for itself. He's a guy that he grew up in Memphis near Collierville, Tennessee. He has an uncle and cousins who live in Fayetteville, so there's some family ties here. His sister actually attends the University of Arkansas, and their grandmother and uncle also attended Arkansas. So he said it was really a no-brainer for him. His best outing this past season was April 18th against Evansville when he struck out 13 without a walk in 7 innings. Both runs against him were unearned on that day. The Bruins were 21-34 on the season, 7-7 in games where he pitched, and 4-4 in games that he started. So, a young guy that can come in and be developed by Matt Hobbs. He throws 88 to 91 on his fastball. That acts like a cutter, has an 80 to 82 mile an hour slider with an 81 to 83 mile an hour changeup.
Yeah, and like Zane said, it's nice to see that we're addressing the need for pitching, and that's exactly what we're seeing for the additions of the portal.
Yeah, and I mean, you see those ties, like we mentioned. He has those ties to Arkansas, and then when Arkansas came coming, like you said, it's no brainers. And so that's one of the lefties, and then your other lefty that you have added, Micah Henson from Crowder, right across the border there, not too far from Arkansas. 6'4", posted a 4.18 ERA with a 156 whip in 14 appearances this past season, struck out 101 batters across 60 1/3 innings while he gave up 43 walks and 28 earned runs. He's a guy that initially signed with Kansas State out of high school as a 2025 recruit. As a freshman at Kansas State, he posted a 7.71 ERA across 2 1/3 innings. So not much time on the mound at Kansas State. Probably why you see guys like this that as a freshman, if they don't get a lot of run, or if they have very few outings, like 2 1/3 is not a ton. So they transferred that JUCO route where they can actually play, develop, work on their pitches, their craft type of thing, and then perfect example, you head back up to D1 once you have some time to play, develop, and then can get further developed while also contributing to a team.
Yeah, and so kind of like what we're talking about before the show, I've actually been in contact with Micah through X and all that other good stuff, and he seems like a really good kid. I worked with him on maybe creating a couple graphics for his announcement and whatnot, and he pretty much told me, he goes, "No, man, I don't want to post this because it's not being posted for every other player." He goes, "I just want to keep my head down, stay underneath the radar, go to work, and lead us to the promised land." You got to love that kind of mindset mentality coming from somebody who's coming out of the JUCO ranks.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too, where it's like, like you said, that's the attitude type of culture you want to see, guys that just want to come in, head down, grind, and just, work hard instead of, like you said, have all this, oh, I'm committed, here's all this about me type of thing, and that's, what you see with a Dave Van Horn culture. He likes guys that's going to come in and just get to work, and I think you see that with like, yeah, these guys aren't maybe quote unquote like the flashiest commits, like you mentioned, these guys, LSU's and Florida's getting, commitments from these top players. Well, the top players don't always necessarily pan out. When you find quote unquote diamonds in the rough for these guys that maybe aren't just scouted enough, that, can come in and, you're like, wait a minute, we really got something here. And so, that's what Dave and the staff, obviously DJ Baxendale is starting and as the GM here soon, is going to be key on this. And he's probably been part of this as well, where, while Dave's doing the coaching, recruiting these guys, getting the intel on them, and then getting them on campus. And now here you have them committed and ready to get started and get to work.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm a stats guy, so I look at the numbers. The only thing that does worry me about these two left-handed pitchers is, like Transfer said, 13 Ks in his best appearance. But other than that, 37 strikeouts to 15 walks against better competition next year. It's gonna be tough there. That's the one thing that you think and hope Hobbs kind of not wrangles in, but does a little bit better with. I don't know. I tend to overvalue the strikeout to walk ratio as opposed to most people. So that's one thing I always kind of look at. As a team, we were 11th in the country at 2.96 strikeouts to walks. I think that's at like a 2.4, and then the other guy's like a 2.3. So, it's one of those where obviously you can expect them to take a step up and be better, but at the same time, their competition is going to also be better. So that's one kind of concern that, looking at the stat line, kind of stuck out to me at least. So,
kind of what I'm thinking with these JUCO guys coming in is,
and that's the thing too. I mean,
oh, my bad. But yeah, I was saying that with Van Horn, he might be bringing these JUCO guys in to pitch our midweek games.
Yeah.
Instead of using our Friday night guys for conference games.
Right. And, you bring these guys, JUCO guys in, develop them throughout non-conference play in those midweek games. That way, when you do get to postseason play, they're guys that have gotten some innings, gotten experience at this level, and can be key guys that can come out and, really help you once you get to postseason. So, that's, I think that's some value that Dave's added. Yeah, like we said, it's not the splashiest names, but, there's going to be other names that come out there. Like Trae mentioned last week, we've got a whole month of this transfer portal, and we're only just a handful of days in. So, it's not everything's going to happen in those first few days. These kids are taking visits and, things like that. So, just because Arkansas is not getting those big time commitments just yet, I wouldn't get too much in a flurry just because, Dave's going to do what Dave does, and he's going to put together a roster. I mean, it's already been out there that, he does have a little bit more NIL than what he did last year. So, he's has that to play with. And kind of like Transplant Texan mentioned above, maybe it's a different mindset for Dave with, getting pitchers from the transfer portal. Jimmy Sexton on quick dial. Dave's working his magic here. So
I could go ramble on for 30 minutes about Jimmy Sexton if you want, but I will refrain myself.
Hey, I think Dave's just trying to play hardball right now. Like
if I can summarize all my thoughts up, I'm just going to say that Yurchek better give in.
Yeah.
Because I get a feeling, with the way Jimmy Sexton can be, I think there's going to come some things that DVH and Sexton are wanting. And I think that Yurchek better give in and do it. Transplant, yes. Only DVH could have Hog fans cheering for Jimmy Sexton. I agree with that. But at the same time, while I'm not the biggest fan of Jimmy Sexton, I have to also acknowledge that he is very good at what he does. He does get results. And with Yurchek on the hot seat already, if he were to somehow run DVH off, oh boy. So I think that Jimmy Sexton is the perfect guy to get DVH what he wants, because let's face it, if push comes to shove and it comes down to a matter of fact of DVH getting what he's asking for or walk-in, I think Yurchek's gone or DVH gets what he needs.
Right. Do you want to do it the hard way or the harder way? So
that's the thing. It's either Yurchek gives him what he wants or Yurchek's gone, because you rain off DVH, and now the entire fan base wants your throat even more than they already did.
Right.
So
Well,
yeah,
and
Sexton gets prime results when dealing with Yurchek. I don't
Yeah.
know what it is, but Yurchek's just like he'll bend the knee to Sexton. So
Yeah.
perfect.
Well, the thing about that too is, if it's one of those things where, sorry, we're not going to do that for DVH. Well, Yurchek's going to get fired, and whoever the acting AD at the time is better will come in and make things right.
Oh, exactly. Because DVH has been here long enough and has established himself and this program nationally to the extent to where it's like if he asks for more, I mean, he's getting paid what, the 9th highest of the SEC coaches or 8th?
I think it's like 10.
Yeah,
maybe 10. All right, maybe it was 10 when Vitello was still there. Now 9. I don't know, but DVH is being underpaid.
Oh, yeah.
I think we can all acknowledge that.
Oh yeah.
DVH has done a lot for this program in this university, and he has not exactly been compensated fairly, if I were to say. So I think if DVH now were to come back and want to be compensated fairly, I think he deserves it. He put up with less for so much longer, and I just think that Yurchek may throw a fit, and I agree. I think Yurchek would be gone in that instance.
Well, if you look at it this way, if you're Yurchek and you give, and this is not to be put in a negative connotation, I guess, is if you can do that and give in and give a contract like that to Sam Pittman, that's the least you can do for DVH.
Exactly.
Because the success has been
agree.
more consistent and on a higher level for years.
And that's kind of what I was not hinting at, but kind of what I was like thinking, like, okay, yeah, you did all this for Pittman. So now if DVH comes calling, you can't just go, oh, well, he's been good with being this underpaid this long. Just keep. No, you give DVH what he wants. I mean, let's face it. DVH has established himself and earned the credibility to pretty much get what he wants here at the university.
Well, and let me ask you all this. So we put DVH and Coach Cal pretty much on the same pedestal when it comes to their legendary status for their sports?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's the reason why I asked. So Calipari's contract was a 5-year contract that runs through 2029 and pays him a guaranteed of $7 million, which also includes a $500,000 retention bonus and a $1 million signing bonus. DVH deserves every penny of that as well.
100%.
If not more. Except for, I know Zane, you're going to say that he doesn't have a championship.
No, hang on. I wasn't going to say that. I'm just saying do I think DVH deserves that salary? Yes. Do I think that comparatively to the rest of the collegiate landscape in that sport, does he deserve it? No. Just because I see stuff on Twitter where it's like, oh, to really have a championship contending college baseball team, you need $4 to $5 million. Okay. To build a contending championship basketball team, you need 10 to 15 million. Football, you need 30 to 40. Like, the amount of money behind each of these programs is drastically different to where I think that the salary and the contract, well, I think that Cal's salary in relation to other basketball coaches DVH deserves, absolutely. The monetary value, though, I'm not 100% sure, just because basketball is generally so much higher than baseball as a whole. So I think that if you're saying Cal's getting paid, for example, a top 5, I think DVH deserves a top 5. I agree with that. But in terms of the actual numbers, it's a little dicey there just because comparatively to the rest of the NCAA landscape, it's tough.
Yeah.
Right. Because, okay, look at it this way. Your top paid coaches is Jay Johnson, $3.35 million. Brian O'Connor at Mississippi State, $2.9 million. And Tim Corbin at Vandy, $2.4 million. All right. Put him in the middle. $2.5 million for Dave, and then send a boatload in for NIL. Like if you, in terms of, I get what you're saying on it, weighing out per, what the landscape of the sport is. Like if your highest paid coach in baseball is Jay Johnson at 3.35 million, and he was fresh off of a national championship, you're not going to go out there and pay Dave 5 to 6 million. You make him competitive in the top 5 there, and then send a lot of that to NIL.
Yeah, and comparatively speaking, Jay Johnson was what, 3.35?
Yeah.
Like 3.35 in college basketball would put him at 41st paid basketball coach, even with Pat Kelsey at Louisville. Like the number one coach, Grant, according to USA Today, is Bill Self at $8.85 million. So that's where I just think it's drastically different in terms of DVH deserving everything Calipari gets. I think comparatively speaking, yes, Calipari, according to this, at least, is the 3rd highest paid coach in basketball. I think DVH needs to be a top 3 paid coach. So I fully agree with that.
And that's kind of what I was aiming for.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the dollar amount, because, like you said, basketball can pretty much self-fund itself. Football can self-fund itself. Baseball still needs a little bit of help, but we can't act like DVH isn't the reason why Arkansas baseball is what it is today.
Yeah.
Right.
No, for sure. And I figured that's what you meant. I just wanted to kind of clarify, like, the money value, maybe not, but in terms of compared to the rest of the sport, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like Transplant Texas said here, it's a good point too, is he said coaching contracts do not always reflect the agreements made behind closed doors. I see the DVH Sexton collaboration as a means to get more money, more seats at Bomb, and possibly other type of things, including NIL, things like that will benefit the program other than just himself. Because as we know, DVH isn't, he is definitely not the guy that is like all about, oh yeah, give me the most money. He wants to, I think he's a guy that defines Arkansas. He wants to see Arkansas succeed. Yes, he wants to be accurately compensated for the work he does for consistently winning, but he's not, I don't think he's like necessarily hiring Sexton in terms of, let me just make as much money as I can.
Yeah, I agree.
Let me hire Sexton to come in and help negotiate. Hey, yes, I should be paid a little bit more, but also I need more NIL funds. I need X, Y, Z, if I'm going to continue my success here. And, obviously, as we talked about before, his current contract runs through 2031. And at the time he got paid, it was one of the top coaches' salary. But in the past few years, in the landscape, you've seen guys kind of jump up.
Yeah, it's surpassed. And that was what, 2021 when he signed that contract?
Yes, because it was a 10-year deal.
Yeah, and it was like the highest or one of the highest, and now it's 11th highest or something.
Yeah.
But he's still paid well, but I agree he does deserve more than what he's getting now.
Well, and you were talking about the money too. Van Horn's been willing to take less money, so his assistant coaches could be some of the highest paying coaches, and that's a prime example. Matt Hobbs, his salary up into 2028, so 2 more years, is $550,000 a year. He's making significantly less than Van Horn, but when you take the terms of how much money he's making versus other head coaches in the SEC, he's making pretty comparable money to what.
Compared to other pitching coaches, he's ridiculously up there. So I agree, but I also think, like, kind of the big picture, circling back, Van Horn's only going to take this whole underpaid aspect so long. And I think by hiring Sexton, he's kind of signifying a end of that and wanting to be compensated. Let's face it, at this point, he's probably eyeing retirement before too long. And so trying to better himself the best he can in that regard, while also making sure the program's taken care of and in good hands. So it's just one of those, I think that I also think it's going to be tough because I think Yurichek's just gotten used to being able to underpay Van Horn, and it's going to kind of be a bombshell when he does, or not bombshell, what's the term? Kind of a shell shock whenever he does finally say, hey, I need to be compensated.
Yeah.
But again, though, these conversations have probably been going on behind closed doors for probably a little bit now. So it's not necessarily a complete surprise to our athletic director. I don't even like saying his name. Um, that David Horn is going to want to get paid because, like you said, for sure he is eyeing the end of his retirement,
Yeah.
and he wants to make sure that him and his wife and grandkids and kids are set for the future.
Yeah. I agree 100% there. So we'll see what happens, but we'll keep you up to date on all things going on with Arkansas baseball as recruiting and transfer portal continues. As we continue on, sticking with the Diamond Sports quickly, it came out end of this week that Arkansas is losing hitting coach DJ Gasso as he is headed to Tulsa to take on the head coach position over there. He is he's been a great asset when he came over and took that hitting coach position. You saw what Arkansas's offense has been the past few years under, his guidance there. And so, best of luck to him. So we'll be interested to see who Courtney Deifel goes after to bring in to replace him as our Arkansas's new hitting coach. Transfer portal is open for softball, but not just a ton of waves for Arkansas softball just yet. You've seen a handful of ladies enter the transfer portal, and they've been, girls that have not, played just a ton, but, we were talking about it before the show, could be players that decide to follow DJ to Tulsa potentially. That could be a reason for, I think it's the last I saw the list was up to 5 that have entered the portal so far. So, it wouldn't be shocking to see that. But we'll see what comes of Arkansas softball when we get news on who's coming in to be the new hitting coach, as well as any new players that commit out of the transfer portal. So, quick tidbit there for softball. As we continue on, just as we've been on the past 30 minutes, we're going to talk some Arkansas football recruiting, and we've been getting notifications these past 30 minutes while we've been talking Arkansas baseball. With obviously Arkansas baseball had a big weekend of recruiting this weekend. They had about 20 visitors that come in. Running through the list quickly, you had Jabari Watkins, wide receiver, linebacker out of Thomasville, Georgia. Brody Knowles, wide receiver out of Southlake, Texas. Darian Mosley, wide receiver out of Alabama. Parker Keenan, tight end out of Tennessee. Judah Gums, and tackle out of Florida. Caleb Sealer, offensive tackle out of Texas. Tegan Perezik, offensive lineman out of Georgia. Eli Thornton, defensive tackle out of Arkansas. He's already committed. Keith Richmond, an end out of Alabama. Will Caston out of Fayetteville, who is already committed. Joshua Banks, cornerback out of Texas. Rashad Silver, DB out of Decatur, Georgia. Stanley Peters, DB out of Mississippi. And Hunter Hogg, a safety out of Texas as well. So, you've got a handful of people that have been in, and then since we've been on, we've had a handful of commitments come through. The big one that came in, today so far, we've got tight end that visited, as we just mentioned, Parker Keenan. As we know, we lost the commitment from our previous tight end that was visiting Oregon and potentially is going to get flipped to Oregon. Well, we brought in Parker Keenan. He is the 11th commitment for the 2027 class out of Tennessee. 6'6", 225. He was fresh off his visit this weekend and decided to go ahead and commit to Arkansas. He had also had offers from Cincinnati, Colorado, Florida State, Maryland, Memphis, and others. In 12 games as a junior, he had hauled in 24 passes for 408 yards and 4 touchdowns. And so, Arkansas addressed that need for tight end. But since then, we've also got a commitment from 3-star offensive tackle Tegan Perezik 6'6", 300 out of Tennessee as well. And then Keith Richmond, 6'2", 225 edge out of Alabama that was visiting as well. So, the commitments for football on Sunday after this visiting weekend have been coming in fast and furiously. So it's good to see what Silverfield is doing, getting these kids in and making sure that he gets the commitment out of them before they leave campus or, shortly after they've finished up their official visits.
Yeah, and so like what Transplant just said, he's concerned about the bulk and also how most of the recruits have been 3-star. I will say this: don't look really too far into the stars because Arkansas has more 3-stars in the league than 5-stars in the league. I'll just leave it at that.
I mean, yes, but once you're done, I'm also want to comment on this.
Yeah, and well, and I was gonna say, a good buddy of mine, Dre Greenlaw. Zane, me and you went to high school with him, or I went to high school
No,
with
almost
him.
got dunked on him in a mural. I got out of the way in time. Don't worry.
But yeah, coming out of high school, he was a top safety in the state, only a 3-star safety. And then the Hawgs transferred him to linebacker, and now look at him. He's playing for the San Francisco 49ers and played in 3 Super Bowls. And he's a key part of their defense. So I don't really look at the stars. I think what Silverfield is doing is he's looking for guys that have the right mentality, the right ethics, and the guys that just want to be here. And that's what we've been missing, I feel like, for the last few years is guys who want to be here, guys that aren't chasing the dollar bills, guys that want to play football and wear the hog on the side of their helmet. That's why I'm so excited for this season.
Right.
Yeah, and also kind of addressing the same comment. I mean, if we're being completely realistic here, we're 2-10. We have not been that good at football the last few years. It's going to be hard to convince 5-stars, especially, but even some of your better 4-stars to come here. At the same time, though, Silverfield at Memphis, they were not a Power 4 team. Yes, they were very good recruiting for a non-Power 4 team, but still, he had a lot of 3-star players. Yes, I know it's a different level of competition, but at the same time, he was also 5-2 against Power 4 teams in his time at Memphis, 4-2 against SEC teams, with primarily 3- and 2-star recruits. So I trust what he's done at Memphis with 3-star recruits to be able to identify the guys that he trusts and can develop into quality players. So that's why I'm not too worried yet. I think that, if he can kind of right the ship in the next year or two and at least get us, I'm not looking for an 11-1 realistic. I'm looking, hey, if we can get 5-7 this year and maybe a 7-5 next year or whatever, just kind of at least show that growth and development and being better, I think you'll start to see the higher star guys kind of start to commit. It may be more of a process than fans want to admit or what they're looking for. But realistically, in the scope of college football, we are not exactly a top destination for teams right now or for players right now. So it's very tough. It's very tough as a new coach, especially with what you're taking over to try to get guys to come in. So I think that also on Transplant's newest post, the expect added money, I think it'll be secure some in-state kids. That way you can lock up the state. Yes, but I also feel like guys he's willing to spend the money on, I trust his eye for development from what I've seen in his time in Memphis. I trust he's able to develop players well. So I trust that he's not just going to throw all this money at a 4 or 5-star guy and just hope he pans out. I think he's going to kind of recruit, scout, and analyze a player and say, okay, is it really worth throwing the extra money at him? And then heavily pursue a player if so. So I think it's more of it might be a slower process than what people are wanting. I'm not saying it's going to take, 4 or 5 years. I'm saying this year we may see some improvement. The following year, a little bit bigger improvement. But I do think you're going to see an improvement for sure. But in terms of convincing recruits to come to you, that's going to take time. You can't flip that in one off season, no
Yeah.
matter who you are. I mean, even Indiana, he brought guys with him from James Madison. Like, you cannot change the general image of your university or your football team in one off season. So as much as we are, yes, we got this new money. Oh, we have a new coach, new mindset. Recruits are still looking at, hey, yeah, you were in 2-10 last year. Like, that is tough to shake, and you almost have to show them improvement before you can convince them otherwise. So I'm just going to be here and say, hey, pump the brakes. Don't expect him to go get all these 4 and 5 stars right away. It's going to take time. He has to show his ability as a coach to develop in order to get these guys to kind of trust him and come to a school that was 2-10 in the previous season before him.
Yeah, I mean, well, you look at what Clark Lee's doing at Vandy right now. You know, Vandy was a complete dumpster fire when he took the job, and
Yeah.
then they bought into the process, all the other stuff, and now he's finally got the number one commit or quarterback for the class committed to
And
him.
Diego Pavier's playmaking ability equivalence of Johnny Manziel was definitely helpful in that regard.
Right, right.
But
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing though, is kind of like what you said. I just when we look at the end of the season, no, I'm not necessarily going to look and say like, okay, we finished under 500, and all things are lost. The thing I'm going to be looking at is, were we competitive against Georgia? Were we competitive against Tennessee, Texas, all these other teams? And if we can answer yes to that, I think that's a win for Silverfield in his first season.
Well,
yeah,
I
I think that in the SEC, it's going to be tough, and I think it's going to be a lot harder than people think.
Well, and whatever bad. Oh, go ahead, Caleb.
No, I was just going to say, if you look into, what these kids are talking about, after their official visits and, from what conversations, have been had with them, the key words that you're seeing them talk about, with Silverfield and what they're seeing on their visits is, key words are like change and the culture and, the coaches, like those key words that you see when, that are going to be important whenever Silverfield comes in. And that's one thing he talked about. He said he wanted to come in and change the culture. I mean, and Trae and I at the spring game, we were talking about how those kids looked like they were actually enjoying being out there, seemed more energized and more like they were just enjoying playing football. Whereas, the past season or two, that hasn't necessarily been the case. You've seen guys, maybe the effort wasn't there this past season at some point in the games and things like that. So it's like, it's good to see the change. And it's like, you have guys talking about, safety target that visited Hunter Hogg said, I can't pass on Arkansas anymore. I've got to focus on them. I've got to realize that they're a real contender in my decision that I may want to be a Razorback one day. And this trip has definitely proved that. 4-star cornerback Joshua Banks that visited said, I love the environment, the stadium, the weight room. I love everything. Coaches, it's just, it's perfect. And so Arkansas defensive lineman commit Eli Thornton. I feel like the energy, you can really feel the change throughout the whole program with the new staff. So, to see these kids talking about that and seeing that, that they see it themselves and they enjoy these visits, yeah, like we said, we may not come out there and get all these 5 stars in year one. But the fact that you're getting some of these guys on campus and they're saying these good things about Arkansas, like I think, yes, you want to see some improvement, like Trae said, in this season. Are we competitive? Yeah, we may not win just a ton of games, but do we look competitive? Are we keeping close games? Are we not getting blown out? And then from there, year after year, if you have the patience and you see that improvement, I think you'll see more of those higher start guys visit and commit. But also to the point, you also can't just not recruit these 3-star guys because, yeah, they may not be heavily recruited, but they could turn out to be some key players for you as well.
Yep.
Yeah. And addressing transplant.
Yep.
It's not going to be an Indiana turnaround. I hate to say, I don't think. Indiana, but their first year they were 0-2 against ranked teams. Like, that's one thing to remember. They had a very easy schedule first year under Signe, but they also brought over a whole bunch of juniors that had been with him for 3 years. Like, they knew the system so well. Obviously, this past year, yes, went on to win it all. I think in terms of a timeline, yes, he hasn't coached a game yet. I think you hit the panic button if the players start giving up or if we are getting blown out consistently. I think that realistically, you're looking at 4-8, 5-7 this year because the schedule is just so tough.
Right.
And I know people do not want to hear that, but I think that that's still going to be an improvement against, I think, a tougher schedule than last year. But if you can hang around and win some of these one-possession games that you have consistently lost under Pittman, which Silverfield is very good in one-possession games, and be competitive and show that fight and, have some of these top-ranked teams on their heels at the end of the game, I think that'll speak volumes as well. Do I think that it may be year 2 till we see a winning record? I do think so. Yeah. But I still think that year 2, if you are 6-6, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think that Silverfield has shown he does have the ability to get the best out of the players and recruit. I do think that you hit the panic button once you start seeing players give up and the staff as well feel like they're giving up. I feel like as long as there's a fight and we are staying competitive and staying close in games, I don't think you should panic. I feel like at ease with direction of the program is when you are improving your record, but also you get 1 or 2 upset wins, and the fan base is, as a whole, it's tough because people want to be very unrealistic. I hate to say it. Historically, Arkansas has not been a good football program. Everyone's like, oh, like the good old days. Okay, yes, you won a championship in 64. You were in a BCS bowl with Bobby Petrino. But since you've joined the SEC, it has been very rough sledding. We have not been a top-tier team year in, year out consistently. I don't think the fan base wants to hear that, but it's going to be tough. It's always going to be an uphill battle to get to that level. I think that once you see that improvement, I think the quote improvement is going to be bowl eligibility and 1 or 2 upset wins against a ranked team each year. And that's going to start get you to where you can get some of these 4-star guys and then start taking that next step. Realistically, I don't see playoff game until maybe year 4, just because you have 22, or technically if you include special teams, you have 24 starters. Basketball, it's a lot easy for a turnaround when one of your 5 starters is a stud you're able to bring in. But it is such a team game to where one guy cannot turn the program around like that, to where it's going to take time to be consistently strong and able to play well. So it's going to be a slower thing than people think, but
yeah,
it's
I mean,
going to
you
be
look
tough.
at it too. Thinking about Transplant Texas mentioned a timeline, but if you think about it, the timeline with the transfer portal and NIL nowadays, like, historically before the age of NIL, the saying was give a coach 4 to 5 years, to build this program. You get his recruits, that type of thing, to see what he can do. But now with the age of NIL and the transfer portal, yeah, you still need to give coaches their time, but you could almost shift that from 4 to 5 to 3 to 4, because you can go out and get some transfer guys that can make a big difference and can turn the program around.
But again, I think that with NIL and transfer portal, people are expected to be now a 1 to 2 year period. But like, you have to remember, your top teams, even back then, still have NIL, still the transfer portal as well. So I think you realistically can shave it down 1 year to 3 to 4 year period, because you can bring in a whole bunch of guys, but at the same time, so's your Georgia, so's your Alabama. They're bringing in guys. I mean, it's tough. Like, Miami brought in a Georgia starting quarterback, and like, it's just one of those where it's just tough. And I think it's going to be, if you're realistic, I think 3 to 4 years is kind of the timeline you're looking at to really be quote successful And I think that being in the SEC makes it just that much harder as well. You don't have the opportunity of an easy season.
Well, and kind
I
of like
mean,
what you
it's just
said
going to be
about,
tough.
well, kind of like what you said about Kirk Cinetti over there in Indiana. They had a pretty easy schedule. Um, it's not no secret that the SEC hates Arkansas football. It absolutely hates us. So that's what I'm kind of hoping that Silverfield will go in there and do his PR management and maybe go make friends with whoever makes the schedules for Arkansas and maybe start giving us some easier games, and that's what's going to help because
I mean,
I mean
here's the
that's
problem, though. Who's your easy games in the SEC?
right, and so that's what I was saying. And correct me
With
if I'm
you
wrong.
having a 9-game SEC schedule, okay, you have maybe Kentucky, South Carolina,
Yep.
Vandy without Pavier now, but like besides those three, your
Yeah,
next easiest quote unquote conference game is, I mean, like what is it? Missouri? Is it Auburn? Is it Florida? I mean, you have to fill up 9 conference games. And
Right.
so you get to avoid 6 teams, but there's 8, 9 SEC teams that are very, very tough every single year. So it's just a full on gauntlet. It is just hard. Whereas, yes, your Big Ten, yeah, you have Ohio State, Michigan, now Indiana, Oregon, but at the same time, you also have Rutgers, you have Purdue, you have some of those teams where it's like, yeah, can I just play them every single year? Can I play them every week? You don't really have that in the SEC because I think it's top to bottom the toughest conference. Yes, Big Ten's won a few lately, but I think top to bottom, you take the bottom of the SEC versus the bottom of the Big Ten, SEC is going to win that. So it's just very tough because, especially expanding to a 9-game conference schedule instead of 8, it's just going to be that much harder of a schedule.
yep.
Well, and it's like you mentioned too, you look at last year's schedule. You didn't have Alabama or Georgia on that schedule last year.
Exactly.
That team last year had the talent. They could have had a decent season. You know, pending all the other X factor things. But you look at just the talent and what you saw initially. Last year's team could have been much better than 2-10. But say you put a Silverfield staff on last year's roster with that talent, you could probably be talking about a whole different year. But you got lucky with the schedule last year. But then, and I say lucky loosely because we still had a tough schedule last year.
You still had at Ole Miss. You still had at Tennessee, A&M, Auburn, Mississippi State, at LSU, at Texas, and Missouri.
Well,
Even
and the
with
only
Alabama
game you
and
got
Georgia.
blown out last year was Notre Dame.
Yeah,
The rest of
the
the
one non-conference game.
Right.
Well, and so Caleb, one thing I want to kind of go back and touch up on. I had to ask permission before I did this first. You were talking about how the culture of the recruits and all that stuff is being changed. And how they're seeing, like you said, they're mentioning culture change and all the other good stuff when they're being recruited. So I have been talking to the number 1 quarterback in the class of 2029 in Oklahoma. His name is Boston Hamilton. Go follow him. He went to the camp that the University of Arkansas had today. And I asked him, how did the camp go? And he said the coaches were different, like new faces. Also, the coaches were actually coaching me up and a lot more energized this season or this year. That's what's going on in recruits, and that's what the recruits want to see. So the recruiting is definitely on the upside. Silverfield's bringing the energy, so is his staff, and we'll see. I mean, let's be real here. It can't get any worse than last year, and then it can't get any worse than whenever John L. Smith was here. So, yeah,
Ow.
see, or
Ow.
Chad Morris.
Ow. That's a dagger right there.
So, it's and one thing that I kind of want to say too about the football program is my computer's not showing it, but somebody made a comment about um the Jesus transplant. That's funny. But something about how can the fans or how can we get these top tier recruits without being supported by our fans? for me, is I don't understand how our football team hasn't been one of the top-notch programs in the country, because you look at what corporations are in our backyard. We got Walmart, JB Hunt, and Tyson, and I mean those 3 corporations have done a lot for this football or for the university, but for some reason why the funding has just not gone its way to where we can produce top talent. We're constantly voted the best place in the SEC to live. So there's just something that's about this area that is allergic to good football, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy that you can have all these things, like you said, all those big companies, all these accolades about, it being a great place to live and things like that. But then, you know, you struggle to have successful football. And I think that's maybe a sign faculty wise, not necessarily coaches, but like your athletic department as a whole, something's not right. And I think hopefully you see a change with the addition of, you got your overall arching GM that's going to come in and help, but then you've got all your sport specific GMs that can come in and help too. Hopefully you can see, some change in the next year or two. I know there's been an emphasis. I mean, heck, Ryan Silverfield's been a guy that has been doing his own fundraising for NIL. He said in one of the interviews he did, he said, I'm not afraid to go out there and try and raise money myself. I heard right when he got hired and when he was doing a bunch of his meet and greets and things like that, after spending just 10 minutes with a, donor, that donor came to Urachek and made a big donation after just spending a few minutes with Silverfield and talking about his vision and the culture and what he wants to achieve here. So, I mean, he's really doing a good job of selling himself and the program. And it goes back to, we've talked about, you could have hired a lot of other guys potentially, maybe not, but at least with a guy like Silverfield, the way he's expressed, he wants to be here. He knows he can make Arkansas successful. And maybe his name wasn't at the top of your list for who you wanted to come in and be the next Arkansas coach, but he's expressed that he's wanted to be here. He has that fire to prove himself, and he's willing to go out there, like he said, and raise money. You don't have just a ton of head coaches that say, hey, I'll go knock on doors and go work, talk to these people and try to get more money for my program. They're like, oh, let the AD or whoever, go do that. Silverfield, he wants to be successful, and he's showing that drive.
And I will say the one thing to look at where I think Hog fans got very tired, one possession games. Pittman was 7-19. Silverfield's 19-15. So winning record as opposed to not good. So that's an improvement at least to where hopefully that experience in one possession games and having the experience of coming out on top of those. Last season alone, we lost a one possession game to Memphis that Silverfield won. I think hopefully that right there will also kind of be a deciding factor and help us hopefully get a couple upsets here and there that'll kind of help point us in the right direction and kind of motivate the fan base. And again, I think once you see, as much as, yes, he's out there raising money and doing all this stuff, I think it's tough because there's only so much support he's going to get until results are shown. Like, I mean, he has to get results. Like, there's only so much people will give him before it's like, okay, well, I need to see the results of this. Like, yes, what you're saying is good. Can you actually turn around? Can you actually do this? I think once you have a season of results under your belt, or even just one or two big wins, I think that'll really change things a lot quicker. And transplant, raise tuition for the students, it's tough. I think, yes, that's something to look at, but at the same time, it's very tough just because, like, we don't have a St. Louis, Kansas City, or Dallas to kind of feed into our students right now. We don't have a city like that. And so it's tough because you still want to, I mean, yes, even though NIL is so big, you still want to be able to offer the quote in-state tuition to students to at least have some alleviation there and some help. So outside of athletics, you still want to be able to have your student population large enough and growing at the size to where you can stay competitive in the SEC just in terms of just from your tuition. I think if you start knocking out the whole in-state tuition for Texas kids, you're going to lose a lot of student population. And that's just tuition money you're not going to get, because I think a lot of them do come here to, quote, get out of state, but also pay in-state tuition. So there's a fine balance there you have to kind of look at in terms of the university non-athletics in terms of the money. So that's kind of a tough balance there.
Yeah, and kind of like what he just said about an athletic fee. So right now, there's currently only Missouri, Auburn, A&M, Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina that have athletic fees into their tuition. I think if we're gonna go anywhere to raise money, that's probably gonna be the route that we're gonna go. Because looking at those fees, I mean, it comes out to about $300 a year, and it's about 150, $155, um, a semester. Or not a semester, but every 6 months essentially. Um, you think about it, you $300 times how many people are enrolled right
Yeah.
now in the University of Arkansas?
Yeah,
I mean, that could be
that would be beneficial to look at and add.
yeah.
I just think you still give the quote in-state tuition just because of what your tuition and your enrollment numbers would drop to if you didn't.
Yeah. Well, and it's like we said too. It's like you hit on it too. It's like, you know, from a PR standpoint and, everything that Silfield's done since he's came in, checked all the boxes. It's been great. We've talked about this, and I think I've said this multiple times on the show. He came in, flipped these in-state recruits, got a decent portal class, has, all the fundraising, all this great talk about the culture and, what he wants to build here. All that's fantastic and great. And, fans love to hear that. But to your point, Zane, what you mentioned earlier, at some point, you want to start seeing those results on the field.
I mean, there's only so much you can do in your first year. I hate to say it.
Right, exactly.
It's tough because he can pitch all he wants. But the fact of the matter of 2-10 last year, yes, you're kind of taking over. I mean, there's some hindrances in terms of your schedule, your conference, and all this. There's some points where people will give you money, but they won't give that extra amount until they see results. So I think there's a solid cap to what he's able to bring in right now until he has a season of results under his belt to say, this is the improvement we made.
Yeah.
So it's just tough.
Well, and so while you guys were talking, I did some quick searching on the what we're talking about, $300 per student, right? So right now there's roughly about 34,000 students that are enrolled into the university right now. So if each one of them paid the 300, that'd be $10.2 million. And through the university, there's 19 sports. So you divide that by 19, and that'd be each sport is getting $536,000. In the grand scheme of things, that could go a long ways in the recruiting. That could, that could get you the next. Oh, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Arch Manning, that big name quarterback.
Well, and you think about it too. It's like you said, that math. If we're being honest, that that total wouldn't be split evenly between all those sports. So you're looking at, say, your big three between football, baseball, basketball. They're probably going to get a majority of it. And so, that would be a decent chunk if you implemented that. And like you said, it doesn't sound like a lot when you say, $300 per student with what they're paying for tuition. But, Trae did that quick math. That's a lot of money that could be a big boost in NIL. And in, like he said, in terms of getting that next big, building block or piece of,
go get a starting program. 5 in basketball.
Yeah.
There you go. But I mean, realistically, we got Chicken Man money that helps out with that part. So as long as Cal's going to be around, the Tyson family is going to be around. So,
See.
I was about to say they like their basketball. So,
yeah.
but with that, yeah, we'll keep you guys up to date. This has been the second weekend of Arkansas football recruiting and visits and things like that. And we've seen commitments between both weekends. And as Silverfield continues to build that, it's going to be fun to watch and see what he does. And then in terms of baseball, we're going to keep you guys up to date. I'm sure this is just the start for DVH and what he's doing for building the program for next year to make another run. And it's going to be fun to see what this offseason has in store for us. We're going to be doing a little bit of different things around here with the offseason, with us having more time to dive in depth into things, talk to different people and things like that. And so, keep your eye out for what we've got coming up for you guys over the next month or two. And then before you know it, we'll be getting close to fall camp and getting ready to start doing our position by position breakdowns and looking at in depth what this Arkansas football team is going to look like next year. So as we get ready to wrap up here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. That way you don't miss any time we go live as Transplant Texan, one of the biggest supporters over here. Like, subscribe, and share. Great show as always. We appreciate it. And so with that, before we wrap up and get out of here, you guys got anything else?
Yeah, just like always, keep your faith strong, Hawk calls loud, and I'll see y'all next time.
Don't need to say it again.
Absolutely.
Always.
Woo pig always.
There you go. The Hog Fan 40 ounce. Good listen, good pod. We appreciate it. We love all the support. And with that, we're going to get out of here. Everybody have a great rest of your Sunday afternoon. And we'll see you back on Wednesday for our regularly scheduled episode. And stay tuned for what we got coming over the rest of this offseason. With that being said, for Trae, Zane, myself, we're going to get out of here. And we'll see you next time.